It's all these latest developments with Ali Vaez, who's director of the Iran project at the International Crisis Group, is joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for being with us on Al Jazeera, Ali. First of all, how do you view the latest comments by the U.S. President Donald Trump saying that we, meaning the Iranians and the Israelis and the Americans, control the skies? We know where the supreme leader is. Are we soon going to see direct strikes from the U.S., you think?
I think the odds of the United States joining this war are much higher than it's stopping the war. It does appear that President Trump seems impressed with Israel's initial military achievements and wants to join in and finish the job because he thinks that he would be able to get the credit. Of course, the long-term consequences are something else, and I don't think necessarily that either him or Prime Minister Netanyahu are paying much attention to what happens next.
Right. He's demanding, Donald Trump, an unconditional surrender of the Iranians, while at the same time, 24 hours ago or so, he was asking them to do a deal. From Tehran's point of view, is there still a credible diplomatic path forward, given Trump's framing of a complete give-up? Or has that rhetoric now closed the door for now?
I don't believe that the Iranians no longer see President Trump as a reliable negotiating partner. He provided a green light for Israel to attack Iran just 2 days before President's special envoy Steve Witkoff was supposed to meet with the Iranians in Muscat. President Trump had not said that, in his view, the diplomatic track was exhausted, and yet allowed this operation to go forward and is now joining it and is asking for Iranian surrender. Now, imagine from the Iranian perspective, I think the only thing that is more dangerous than suffering from Israeli and American bombs is actually surrendering to American terms, because if Iran surrenders on the nuclear issue and on the demands of President Trump, there is no end to this slippery slope, which would eventually result in regime collapse and capitulation anyways.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, is capitulation not an option then for Iran?
I do believe that someone like Iran's supreme leader, at his age, and given that he has spent a lifetime resisting U.S. pressure, prefers to go down fighting rather than surrendering. And so the risk is that with the Islamic Republic going down, it would try to bring the entire region down with it. And so the risk of a regional conflagration now is higher than ever before.
Right. I was going to ask you about that a bit more. You talked about the consequences there. And with these reports that the Pentagon is moving military assets to the region, how will the Iranians respond if the U.S. does get involved in the conflict directly?
Well, there's no doubt that the Iranians would then target U.S. Forces and U.S. bases and diplomatic facilities in the region. And it is also possible that the members of Iran's network in the region that are still standing, like the Houthis in Yemen or some of the Shia militias in Iraq, might join in. And that's the case in which we have a fully fledged regional conflagration on our hands. Now, look, there's no doubt that Iran will be defeated in the face of the world's most powerful military, the United States, and the region's most powerful military, Israel. But the U.S. has had impressive military successes in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and all of those stories ended in grief. This is why I'm saying a short-term military victory does not necessarily mean that the U.S. has a strategy for stabilizing the region and putting Iran on a better path.
What could make this all stop, you think, and take us back to where we were perhaps a week ago, where there was a deal that was close to Iran and the Americans reaching a deal on Iran's nuclear program?
Well, if President Trump really wanted the deal, instead of siding with Israel, he had to create some distance with Israel. He had to demonstrate to the Iranians that he is willing to hold Israel back by even threatening to cut off the provision of offensive weapons to Israel. And only in that scenario, the Iranians would take him seriously and would re-engage him. And if he would put some sort of reasonable nuclear agreement on the table, then I think there would be a diplomatic way out of this. But President Trump, everything he has said in the past few days signals that he's moving in the opposite direction and is more likely to escalate this conflict than to de-escalate it.
Concerning times, no doubt. Thank you so much for speaking to us and sharing your views and insight. Ali Vaiz from the International Crisis Group joining us here from Washington.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.